Vet discovers shocking secret in German Shepherd's belly. Transformative miracle revealed. Dr. Emily Harper stood poised in the sterile operating room, the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her like an anvil. The clinic's overhead light cast a harsh glare, illuminating the scared face of Max, the German Shepherd, who lay on the table. His owner, Mr. Thompson, paced outside, worry etched into his features. Just moments ago, a routine consultation had spiraled into an impending surgery, the grim possibilities racing through her mind. Could this be the last chance for Max? And for her career? Could this be the defining moment where everything collapsed or turned around? She glanced at the clock, her heart racing in tandem with her thoughts, the mounting economic struggles of Maplewood shadowing her every move. Emily was suffocating under the scrutiny of a community that had risen through thick and thin, now wrestling with unspoken doubts about the viability of her practice. As much as she wanted to reassure Mr. Thompson, the truth was that she had her own insecurities spiraling within. Was she enough? It felt like a cruel irony that, in a town where everyone knew each other's names and stories, Emily felt utterly alone. With a deep breath, she focused on the task at hand. The surgery commenced, her hands trembling slightly as she made the incision. Deep in Max's belly she felt something hard. Panic surged. What if it was something deadly? What if she made the wrong choice, the one that cost Max his life? The murmurs of self-doubt morphed into a chorus, each note mocking her ambition to prove herself in a man's world. Before she could spiral further, she found it, a tarnished antique locket. This wasn't a typical discovery. She felt an electric thrill as she retrieved it. But what could it mean? Her mind raced as she thought of the implications, not just for Max, but for Mr. Thompson, and for herself. Suddenly, this wasn't just surgery anymore. This was an opportunity. What if this locket held secrets tied to Mr. Thompson's past? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she opened the locket, a yellowed letter slipped out, dated decades before the present. Emily paused, her heart pounding, not out of fear for Max's health, but from the realization that she was holding a window into a shared narrative that transcended their lives. The letter unveiled a lost love, an unfulfilled promise, and a connection that shook the very foundations of Mr. Thompson's existence. Nearly tangible, the weight of what she held threatened to swallow her whole. In that instant of discovery, she confronted a plethora of emotions. Unforgiving pressure to fight for Max's life, tremors of anxiety about her capabilities as a woman in a male-dominated field, and the deep concern for her parents, who would soon need her more than ever. Here, amid surgical lights and the ghost of history laid bare, would she find her own path to purpose, or lose herself to the undertow of fear and expectation? Emily's grip on the delicate locket tightened as she wrestled with her purpose. All eyes were on her, but could she rise to meet their expectations? The road unfolding ahead was daunting, but in this moment, surging with self-doubt mingled with the promise of revelation, she wondered. Could this choice redefine her entirely? Nothing could shield her from the truth that now lay before her. The discovery wouldn't just change Mr. Thompson's world, but potentially draw back the curtain on her own life's mysteries chain of decisions leading her to this critical juncture. How could she face these demons, standing at the precise crossroads of history and self? The echoes of Max's struggle reminded her that she wasn't just fighting for a dog anymore. She was wading into her community's turbulent waters, ready to uncover the secrets long buried within. Emily felt the sharp edge of the locket digging into her palm, grounding her to the moment. She had to act, to push past the whirlwind of emotions swirling in her mind. Max was depending on her, as was Mr. Thompson. She slipped the locket into her scrub pocket for safekeeping, shifting her focus back to the surgery, her training taking over as she methodically proceeded. The procedure suddenly transformed into a symphony of purpose. Each suture she closed felt like a stitch in the fabric of her career, a chance to prove that she was more than just a woman in a field dominated by men. She was a healer, an advocate, and she had insight others would take the time to overlook. The rush of adrenaline propelled her beyond the self-doubt that gripped her less than an hour ago. With decisive motion, she completed the surgery. It felt as if every stitch she made echoed her determination to reclaim her narrative, to stand strong in the face of challenges both professional and personal. As she sewed the last incision, she imagined Max bounding across the yard, free and healthy. With that thought, a flicker of courage ignited within her. Once the surgery ended, she stepped out into the waiting area where Mr. Thompson paced, his face a mask of anxiety. She caught her breath and mustered the words she practiced in her mind. "Mr. Thompson, Max is stable, and we found something unusual in his belly." The weight of the locket burdened her thoughts like a storm cloud as she recalled the letter's contents. She clenched her jaw, steeling herself for the conversation that loomed ahead. "What do you mean?" he asked, suddenly alert. Emily hesitated, recalling the emotional turmoil she had glimpsed through the yellowed paper. "It's a locket, with a letter. It belonged to someone tied to your past." Surprise registered on his face. My past? Her resolve wavered for just a moment. Was it her place to uncover his history? But the pull of destiny was stronger than her hesitation. That very locket might wield truths capable of reshaping not only Mr. Thompson's life, but hers as well. She stepped forward, a decision crystallizing within her. "I believe it holds answers you deserve to know." In that moment, their eyes locked. A silent understanding passed between them, binding them to a journey neither had anticipated. She could feel the weight of the locket still in her pocket, reminding her that she was forging a path, not just for the sake of a pet, but for an entire life narrative entwined with her own. Returning to her office, she carefully pulled the locket from her scrubs and placed it on her desk. The constraints of fear surged again as she pondered what revealing the truth might unleash. Would this discovery bring closure to a life steeped in regret for Mr. Thompson? Would it mean a desperate confrontation with her own unresolved issues? As these thoughts raced through her mind, she realized this moment was more than just about the locket, Max, or Mr. Thompson. It was a decisive turning point for herself, forcing her to confront not only the judgment of others, but her self-imposed limitations as well. With each breath, she felt the courage within her growing, empowering her in ways she had never anticipated. But what if this encounter thrust her further than she was prepared to go, deeper into the tangled histories they shared? She could bring growth, understanding, or create more questions that might propel their lives into chaos. The journey had just begun, and Emily found herself at the precipice of discovery, confronting not only Mr. Thompson's past, but also her own. The moment had arrived to make a choice that would define her future as a vet, and as a woman in a world defined by expectation. Would she dare to unlock the secrets of the past they both shared? Emily sat in her office, staring at the locket on her desk. It glimmered in the sparse light, a representation of everything she feared and craved at once. The weight of the decision stretching before her felt as heavy as the very tools she wielded during surgery. This was not merely a locket. It was a channel to uncertainties about her own identity and purpose. She leaned back in her chair, running her fingers over the cool metal. The engraving had a graceful script that hinted at a life unseen. Recollections of her childhood surged, moments where she felt powerless, suffocated by expectations, by the doubts that trickled in whenever she tried to break free. Now those old patterns clashed against her recent surge of confidence. How much strength did she truly have to confront what lay hidden in the locket, and in Mr. Thompson's life? Determined, she pushed away from her desk and paced the small office. Her thoughts were a jumbled mess, created by the crisscrossing lines of her past and present. Suddenly, urgency propelled her. She had made a decision. She would reveal the contents of the locket to Mr. Thompson. It was time for both of them to engage in this healing process, not just for Max, but for their intertwined stories. She pulled out her phone, drafted a quick message to Mr. Thompson to meet her in the clinic's conference room, then hit send. Instantly, her heart raced. Was she making the right choice? The fear of the unknown loomed larger than ever, but it was intertwined with a fierce resolve to offer clarity. Clarity not just for herself, but for Mr. Thompson, who seemed to carry the weight of an unshared past on his shoulders. The moments leading up to their meeting felt excruciating. Each tick of the clock echoed her apprehension. She could easily back down, slip the locket back into her pocket, and pretend this conversation didn't matter. Yet, that thought filled her with disappointment. She wanted to be the person who confronted fears, not shied away from them. Finally, Mr. Thompson entered the room, his anxious demeanor lessened by a flicker of hope in his eyes. "You wanted to talk?" he asked, taking a seat across from her. With a steadying breath, Emily placed the locket on the table between them. "This belonged to someone important to you, and I think it might answer some of the questions you've carried for a while." His gaze shifted from the locket to her face, a mix of anticipation and trepidation. "What do you know about it?" His voice quivered slightly, betraying his nerves. "Not much yet. I found a letter inside that hints at your past, about connections that might have been lost," she replied, focused. "But I believe it's essential that you hear what it says. You deserve to know." Frustration flickered across his expression. "How do you figure? What if I don't want to dig through old wounds?" Her resolve needed to resonate in the room. "We're already touching those wounds. Max's surgery and this locket symbolize something that yearns to be set right. Sometimes it's in confronting what hurts that we find strength and healing. As a vet, I've seen animals mend after painful truths. It might help you as well." She watched his expression shift, uncertainty fluctuating with the hint of realization. He picked up the locket, cradling it like a fragile artifact. The authentic vulnerability he displayed was a mirror to her own hesitance, but also a glimmer of hope. As he examined the locket, she felt the rising tide of her own unresolved fears. Did she truly believe in the potential for healing, both for herself and for Mr. Thompson? This was ostensibly uncharted territory, a crossroads that could redefine their lives. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson spoke. "If this holds the truth to my past, then maybe it's time I face it." The admission hung in the air, amplifying the tension humming between them. Emily felt a surge of encouragement ripple through her, fueling her next move. "Then let's discover this together. The locket could lead to revelations that change everything." As he nodded, resolute yet wary, Emily's heart raced. This was the pivotal moment, the leap into the unknown. She had taken the first step, but the path ahead was still shrouded in layers of fear and potential revelation. What truths lay dormant within their shared history, waiting to be uncovered? And would they find answers, or only further questions igniting their journey? The winds of their stories were starting to intertwine, and it was clear that destiny was set in motion. As the silence settled between them, Emily could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on her chest. Mr. Thompson's fingers trembled slightly as he turned the locket in his hand, the light catching on its edges, casting small reflections that danced on his face. It was as if every flicker of illumination pulled them deeper into a shared past that neither had fully understood until now. "Do you think it will be enough?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The vulnerability in his eyes mirrored the doubts echoing in Emily's mind. Would this revelation provide clarity, or would it merely stir up more questions? She hesitated, aware that they were standing at the precipice of something monumental. Sometimes, the truths we uncover can be unsettling, but they also allow us to forge a new path. It was her own conviction that began to flicker, but she knew she needed to be resolute for both of them. With a sudden determination, Mr. Thompson opened the locket and withdrew the small folded piece of paper hidden within. It was yellowed with age, the edges delicately frayed. He opened it gingerly, as if afraid that the words themselves might unleash a deluge of emotions he wasn't prepared to handle. Emily leaned forward, bracing herself for both his response and her own. As he read, the lines of Mr. Thompson's face shifted, each movement revealing layers of emotion. Confusion, disbelief, and a slow dawning recognition flitted across his features. This is from my mother," he said, astonished, yet painfully hesitant. But how did you? Emily felt a swell of empathy punctuate her racing thoughts. I found it while searching for any connection that could help Max. The locket seemed to resonate with the story I sensed within you. She paused, collecting her thoughts. In many ways, it's about understanding the fear that comes from facing our past. This could be your first step towards peace. He looked up, vulnerability mingling with a hint of anger. You think I haven't tried to understand my past? I've spent years avoiding this. Every time I thought I'd find peace, it turned out to be another betrayal. The intensity of his words sent a chill down Emily's spine. The walls he had built were not just barriers. They were defensive fortifications meant to guard a heart that had faced too much trauma. Facing the past doesn't mean you're destined to relive it, Emily replied carefully, her voice steady, cutting through the emotional tumult swirling around them. What makes us feel strong is our choice to accept it. You have a chance to rewrite your story. A long silence enveloped them, each lost in their own contemplations. Emily understood now that Mr. Thompson was grappling with wounds far deeper than she had anticipated. This moment wasn't merely a crossing of paths. It was a crucible designed to test their resilience. Maybe it's time I stop letting fear dictate my choices, he finally said, his tone resolute yet tinged with sadness. But if I dive into this, it means unearthing everything. Yes, she confirmed, each word laced with encouragement. And if we're willing to face this together, what could emerge on the other side may be life-altering. With this newfound pact, she sensed the tentative steps forward they could take, though uncertainty loomed large. Every moment was a fragile piece of a greater design, one which could lead to healing, if they could only navigate the rough terrain ahead. Yet, just as hope began to unfurl, the heaviness returned. Emily's phone vibrated suddenly on the table, breaking the silence, jolting both of them out of the moment. It was a notification about Max's progress. Her heart dropped. They still had unfinished business with his surgery, which remained fraught with its own complications. What if this locket leads us nowhere, but just back to the beginning of our pain? Mr. Thompson's voice, filled with apprehension, sliced through her thoughts. It might, Emily admitted, knowing the moment of truth was approaching. But sometimes you have to descend into the darkness to reclaim your light. What matters is that we're choosing to walk this path together. Are you ready? As she met his gaze, the air crackled with anticipation. For both of them, this journey was just beginning, but the destination remained uncertain. Could they truly stride forward into the abyss of the unknown? Or would they retreat into the shadows cast by their pasts? And as they deliberated their next steps, Emily felt the unshakable presence of unresolved fears orbiting them, both exciting and terrifying. What awaited on the other side of their reckoning? The answer, still in the murky depths, beckoned them onward. Emily's phone vibrated again, a persistent reminder of the urgency pressing on her. Glancing briefly at the screen, she saw a message from the hospital. Max's welfare hung in the balance, and the weight of that reality threatened to crush her burgeoning resolve. Could she balance her commitment to Mr. Thompson's past exploration with the immediate demands of the present? Seeing the conflict in her eyes, Mr. Thompson steadied himself, the tension between them palpable. You need to focus on your son, Emily, he said gently, the concern in his voice a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. I'll be here when you can. The thought of walking away was agonizing. She had come too far, too deep into this shared uncertainty, and abandoning it now felt like leaving a lifeline untethered. Yet Max's health was non-negotiable. In that moment, Emily faced an impossible choice: continue digging into the fragile threads of Mr. Thompson's history, or attend to the immediate reality of her child's well-being. I can't just, she began, but Mr. Thompson interrupted, his eyes firm yet understanding. You can't abandon your real responsibilities. I won't let you. You've shown me a way forward, and I intend to pursue it. But you need to take care of what's at hand first. Her heart raced as she weighed his words, grappling with a swirl of guilt and resolve. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to push back the storm of emotions. You're right. "I can't ignore Max," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I will make sure he's taken care of, and then I'll come back to this." Mr. Thompson nodded, a flicker of gratitude crossing his facial features. The tension in his body eased slightly, as if she had offered him a lifebuoy in the sea of his uncertainty. Their pact had not been broken but merely postponed. Sliding her phone back into her pocket, Emily steeled herself. She gathered her papers and notes, every movement indicating her commitment to balance both worlds, torn between the past she was about to delve into with Mr. Thompson and the looming surgical uncertainty surrounding Max. "Are you sure you'll be okay?" she asked, wanting him to affirm his readiness without her presence. "More than okay," he replied quietly. "This feels like the nexus point I've needed. I'll confront this." The determination in his eyes mirrored her own. If they both could stand firm in their choices, they might discover strength they hadn't anticipated. Without another word, Emily departed, her mind racing with the complexities of dual commitments. The drive felt surreal, each traffic light hanging heavily as she mentally prepared for the hospital. She kept replaying their conversation in her mind, the vulnerable moments, the pieces he had brought forth. What could they discover together? And what about Max? Was she strong enough to stretch her heart across two realms? As she arrived at the hospital, the sterile scent defined every corner, and the muted sound surrounded her like a shroud. Anxiety tightened its grip around her chest, but she steadied herself. She made her way to Max's room, equipped with determination, ready to face whatever awaited them both. Sitting beside her son, watching him breathe, diluted her fears slightly. She held his hand, quietly whispering promises of strength, both for him and herself. Yet, images of Mr. Thompson and their shared commitment lingered in the background. They had taken the first steps together toward revealing long-hidden truths, and that journey was still alive. The uncertainty of their unfolding stories woven intricately together. Then it hit her. The locket was not just an artifact of the past, but a symbol of the transformative power of truth. Max needed her resilience, and so did Mr. Thompson. Straddling the line between their parallel journeys, she whispered a promise. She would return to uncover the rest of his story. But as she leaned back, allowing hope to settle inside her, a nurse entered with a solemn expression. Emily's heart raced anew. What news awaited her? The healthcare labyrinth had never been kind to families, but was this going to be a moment of reckoning or possibility? As the nurse approached with a clipboard, a sudden thought occurred to Emily. Max's surgery might expose more than just a physical ailment. It could unravel questions about identity, healing, and perhaps unspoken legacies that echoed through generations, intertwining with Mr. Thompson's own journey. Would the answers they both sought draw them closer together, or would it ignite old wounds they weren't prepared to face? In the stillness of that moment of truth, Emily braced herself for whatever revelation lay just beyond the threshold of uncertainty. Emily's chest tightened as the nurse approached, clipboard in hand, her expression a careful mix of professionalism and empathy. The world around her blurred, reducing even the sterile white walls to a mere backdrop of her spiraling thoughts. She might be bargaining for time. The urgency replaced the ordinary chatter of waiting rooms and the incessant beeping of monitoring devices. "Ms. Collins," the nurse began gently, "we need to discuss Max's upcoming surgery." The word surgery loomed ominously in Emily's mind. What if it revealed more than medical issues? Could health be an entry point to family legacy, buried secrets, or truths waiting to surface? A rush of determination surged through her. No matter what awaited them, she would protect Max's spirit and theirs. "I'm ready," Emily said, pausing to consider her words. "Can you tell me what to expect?" The nurse nodded, guiding her through the details. Each step of the surgical process was described in technical terms that felt almost foreign to Emily. Yet with every explanation, she fought to stay anchored amid the anxiety rising like a tide. She clutched Max's hand tighter, grounding herself in the only thing she could control, her presence. After what felt like an eternity, the nurse finished. "He'll be fine," she assured Emily, her tone carrying a warmth that was intended to calm fraying nerves. "Thank you," was all Emily could manage in response, But even those few words echoed a deeper truth. She needed to harness hope, both for Max and herself. As the nurse stepped away and the quietness settled again, Emily allowed thoughts of Mr. Thompson to slip in. His resilience had charged her determination, especially at this crossroads. She had glimpsed something powerful in his story, and now, as she prepared for Max's surgery, she felt a stirring within, a possibility that beneath the layers of fear lay the seeds of change. With renewed resolve, she reached for her phone. Quickly, she typed a brief message to Mr. Thompson. "Need to focus on Max right now. But our journey isn't over. I'll be back." Shortly after sending it, the thought crossed her mind. What if he starts working through his past without her? Anxiety washed over her again. Was she falling down the rabbit hole of self-doubt, doubting whether the revelations would arrive at all without her presence? She shook her head, faced the sterile room, and inhaled sharply. "No. He has to keep pursuing those truths," she whispered, as if the words possessed the power to tether them together through the uncertainty. Each second spent with Max, every ounce of love she poured into him, created strength she could then offer to Mr. Thompson. Time stretched as Emily settled into the chair beside Max's bed, each tick of the clock as a reminder of their inseparable bond. Laying her head back, she closed her eyes, imagining the revelations they would both uncover. Just then, a chill cascaded through the room, as though acknowledging her internal reflection. A faint noise broke through her calm, an unusual humming sound coming from outside the window. Emily jolted upright, and for just a moment, considered the possibility that the future might reveal more than she had ever anticipated. Suddenly, the door swung open. A doctor entered the room, exuding an aura of authority mixed with a hint of concern. "Ms. Collins, we need to discuss something that came to light in Max's tests." Emily's pulse quickened as she met the doctor's gaze. The seriousness in his eyes mirrored the weight she felt in her chest. What discovery awaited her? Would it be a simple medical explanation, or something far more intricate, entwined with the journey she had already embarked upon? In this moment, she realized they were teetering on the edge of exquisite discovery. And like pieces of a puzzle, would the answers forge connections she never imagined? The room felt charged with possibilities as Emily prepared to confront whatever revelation lay ahead. The door was wide open, and with it, the looming question. Would this mark the intersection of their journeys, binding her to Mr. Thompson's past? Or would it serve as a turning point, altering the very course of their lives? Emily's heart raced, a mixture of dread and anticipation swirling within her as the doctor settled into the chair opposite her. The sterile nature of the room felt suffocating. She braced herself, the weight of the unknown pressing down like an anchor. "Ms. Collins," the doctor began, his voice steady yet tinged with an unmistakable gravity. "We found something unusual during Max's tests. It appears he has a condition we weren't initially aware of." She caught her breath, feeling every muscle in her body tense. What kind of condition? The question was thick in the air, each syllable trembling with emotion. The doctor leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. "There are signs of a potential blockage that could escalate if not addressed soon. It's manageable if we act quickly." Each word crashed into her like waves against a rocky shore. A blockage. How could this be? Hadn't they just returned from a routine checkup? The normalcy of their lives felt like a cruel mask, now pulled away to reveal a stark and frightening reality. "Manageable," she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. "What does that mean for him? How do we move forward?" The doctor detailed their options. Surgery was necessary to clear the blockage. He explained the risks and the recovery processes, but all Emily could focus on was the swirl of emotions threatening to engulf her. She felt herself drifting into that familiar territory of doubt, questioning her ability to navigate this storm. She wanted to ask more. Would Max be okay? What aftercare would he need? But a deeper question simmered beneath the surface. As she sat there, trapped in the doctor's clinical explanation, it whispered to her. Why was this happening now, at a moment when she was finally starting to find resolve in her own life? Emily's mind darted back to Mr. Thompson and their conversations about overcoming emotional blockages, both physical and mental. She reminded herself that choices can shape outcomes. Feeling the need to grasp something solid amidst the haze, she focused on the immediate action. "When can we schedule the surgery?" "Tomorrow morning," the doctor replied, his tone professional but gentle. "I'll ensure you have all the information you need before then. The early intervention will certainly help." Some relief washed over her as she nodded. Tomorrow. At least they had that. The thought gave her a foothold in the tide of uncertainty threatening to pull her under. She breathed in, steadied by the possibility that she could still influence the outcome. As the doctor concluded the conversation, Emily felt the persistent shadow of self-doubt surge again. What if she missed something crucial in all this? Could her preoccupations with Mr. Thompson's story pull her focus away from Max's needs? Yet another layer of fear surfaced. What if he didn't pull through? No, she said to herself internally, shaking her head slightly. In the midst of this involuntary warping of emotions, she had to reclaim clarity. She whispered to Max, who remained peacefully unaware on the hospital bed. "I need you to fight for me, buddy. I'll be right here. We'll get through this together." A new resolve sprouted. Max's fight became her fight. She'd be his advocate in the operating room, a voice for him when he had no words. Emily felt the tension weaving into determination as she transformed her fear into focus. She would educate herself, ask questions, ensure they weren't overlooked. The experience with Mr. Thompson had unearthed layers of strength she hadn't previously acknowledged. And now, faced with Max's surgery, she felt those layers begin to peel back further. As uncertainty loomed, she realized that the discomfort she felt was revealing aspects of herself she had previously left unexplored. Just then, her phone buzzed on her lap, breaking her deep contemplation. It was a message from Mr. Thompson. "Thinking of you and Max. Let me know if you need anything." Emily grasped the phone tightly, caught between their journeys, his past revelations and her unfolding present. Would she still be able to guide him through his struggles even while engulfed in her own? The question, a gnawing uncertainty, echoed in her mind. She resolved to forge on. With her phone still in hand, she knew she had a decision to make. Would she open up and share her ongoing battle with Mr. Thompson, allowing their connection to deepen further? Or would she keep her struggles tightly wound within, protecting him instead? The door clicked softly as the doctor made his exit, leaving Emily with a torrent of thoughts. The grounding questions now emerged with urgency. Was her choice in sharing her emotional state a reflection of trust or an act of vulnerability that could jeopardize their progress? The clock continued ticking, and in those moments she felt the stark intersection of their journeys collide, the anxiety palpable in the air. Tomorrow would bring more than surgery. It would bring choices that could redefine both her path and Mr. Thompson's. Emily sat in the sterile hospital room, her mind racing with the implications of the doctor's words, while her heart drummed relentlessly in her chest. Tomorrow, Max would undergo surgery that might change everything. The room felt smaller, suffocating as she imagined the risks and the uncertainties that hung over her little boy. Would he be all right? Could she endure the tension of waiting, the fear of losing him? Determination surged within her as she steeled herself against the wave of anxiety. She had to remain focused, not just as a mother, but as an advocate. Max's health, his future, depended on her decisiveness now more than ever. She reached for the notepad in her bag, jotting down questions she needed answered. What were the specific risks associated with the procedure? How would they manage pain afterwards? Could she be present until he awoke? Flipping to a new page, Emily found herself hesitating. Just a few days ago, life had seemed somewhat manageable, if not completely ordinary. She had been working on regaining control, pushing through her own blocks, debating ideas with Mr. Thompson about rights and wrongs. And now, here she was with Max's life hanging in the balance, forcing her to grapple with a complex web of emotion. She typed a response to Mr. Thompson, needing his wisdom. "It's been a tough day. Max will have surgery tomorrow. Need some guidance," she wrote, hitting send before she could second-guess herself. Each interaction with him had become a thread of connection, anchoring her in a world that often felt chaotic. Her phone buzzed again almost immediately, and she felt an undeniable rush of urgency wash over her. It was Mr. Thompson. "I'm here for you, Emily. Remember, you're stronger than you think. Focus on Max." His words resonated with an unexpected depth. He believed in her, and that belief somehow prompted her to dig deeper within herself. Her thoughts shifted to the many occasions they had talked about vulnerability. She understood that sharing her opponent with Mr. Thompson didn't equate to weakness. It meant engaging in authentic communication. It meant breaking down the walls that she had, until now, been reluctant to dismantle. Yet, was she ready to expose her emotional fractures? Could confronting her own fears empower both her and Max? She closed her eyes, reviewing every conversation she'd had with him. The enlightening exchanges had emboldened her previously hidden strengths. Deciding with newfound resolve, she crafted another message. "I want to share my fears, but I'm not sure where to begin." As she hit send, a sense of relief washed over her. In that moment of honesty, she discovered a layer of herself that had remained dormant. She wasn't just a caregiver in crises. She was an evolving individual, aware of her vulnerabilities and strengths. The digital beep of her phone interrupted her thoughts once more, and she leapt instinctively, anxious to hear back from Mr. Thompson. His response was immediate. "Start with here. What are the fears fueling your doubts about Max?" Emily felt a bond strengthening between them, woven together by shared struggles and fears. She took a deep breath, her mind racing to articulate everything that burdened her. As she typed out her insecurities about Max's surgery, his fragility, the potential challenges that lay ahead, she realized that by confronting her thoughts head-on, she was fortifying herself in ways she never expected. The act of sharing pulled her closer to a path of self-discovery. What he wanted from her wasn't just her story, but the soul behind it, the recognition that vulnerabilities, when shared, could serve as powerful vessels of connection. Each keystroke felt like a stone marking the ground of her resilience, and when she finally put the phone down, she looked at Max, his face calm and serene in slumber. That moment, shared and woven across distance with Mr. Thompson, was oddly liberating. The choice before her, to be open and present, or retreat into silence, was no longer daunting. She could harness the complexities of her journey. As she closed her eyes for a brief respite, she couldn't shake the feeling that their shared journey was just beginning. Tomorrow would indeed bring a storm, but perhaps, just perhaps, she had begun to discover the strength that lay within her. In that pivotal moment, a new question emerged from the reserves of her mind. How would she apply this new clarity to the challenges that lay on the other side of surgery? And what revelations awaited her in the emotional depths she'd only begun to explore with Mr. Thompson? The next morning arrived heavy with an oppressive silence that felt almost tangible in the hospital corridors. Emily inhaled deeply, the antiseptic scent swirling around her as she prepared for the day ahead. Her phone vibrated softly beside her, pulling her focus back to the present. It was another message from Mr. Thompson. "Thinking of you and Max today. Remember, you have the power to choose your mindset." His words echoed in her mind, and Emily allowed herself a moment of reflection. This was the day she had anticipated with dread, yet resolved to approach differently. She steadied her breathing, nurturing the blend of anxiety and determination that coursed through her. She wasn't just waiting for news, she was gathering energy, summoning resolve to face whatever came next. As she sat by Max's side, watching the peaceful rise and fall of his chest, Emily recalled every conversation she had shared with Mr. Thompson about staying present. Today, she would embrace those teachings. A new clarity settled within her. This could be a pivotal turning point not just for Max but for herself as well. If she could embrace her fears instead of letting them engulf her, perhaps she could cultivate a new strength. The hour dragged on until a nurse stepped in, gently checking the monitors while shooting Emily a reassuring smile. "You're doing great," she said, offering a kind nod before leaving the room. Encouraged, Emily took out her notepad again. She jotted down her goals for the day: be present, allow emotions to surface, engage with the medical team. What had felt like an insurmountable weight the night before began to shed a little as she crafted a mental strategy. She would approach each person in the room, ready to ask questions, and seek unimaginable answers. The idea propelled her into a newfound determination. She wasn't just a bystander. She had a role, a voice that mattered and could advocate effectively for Max. Another nurse entered the room. Feeling a surge of courage, Emily decided to launch into her planned dialogue. "Can you explain the operation in detail? What will I see when he wakes up? I want to be ready for everything." Her voice was steady, yet every word challenged her to remain resolute. The nurse replied with clarity and calmness, breaking down the procedure into manageable pieces of information. For each detail, Emily felt a layer of her anxiety peel away. She wasn't just absorbing facts. She was actively participating in the advocacy for Max, framing the narrative surrounding his health. As the minutes turned to hours, the presence of time consumed her thoughts less, replaced instead by a growing resolve. Each interaction evolved deeper than procedural formalities. They morphed into opportunities for gratitude towards those who dedicated their lives to healing. Then the moment came. Max was wheeled away for surgery. Emily felt an internal tug, an earnest yearning to delve into everything she had learned about vulnerability and strength. She turned to Mr. Thompson's guidance. "You can do this," she reminded herself, barely suppressing the swell of emotion that threatened to breach. As the doctor approached her, she felt her heart pick up its pace again. This was not just a meeting about the details of the surgery. It was about her presence as a mother, her commitment to understanding. "Can we discuss the risks?" she asked, conscious of the power in her words, the ability to understand ultimately fueling her resolve. Their discussion felt electric. Emily found herself not only listening but engaging, pressing for clarity, challenges, and reassurance. The knowledge she gained transformed her view on the situation. She wasn't simply a worried parent, but rather a fierce protector wielding joy and fear in tandem. With each answer, she unlocked more layers of resilience within herself. "You're taking a brave step forward today," the doctor concluded, and it echoed in her ears. If she could face her fears about Max's surgery, perhaps she could confront the fear of her own emotional vulnerabilities too. Returning to the waiting room, an unsettling stillness hung in the air. The haunting question lingered. What would she discover about herself in the hours to come? In quiet moments, it dawned on her that confronting her fears was as crucial as the procedure itself. She was on the precipice of something profoundly transformative. As she looked towards the surgery room with bated breath, she realized with undeniable clarity, the true journey was only just beginning. What would she learn about herself when the dust settled from Max's operation? Would she uncover the depth of her own capabilities beyond this moment? Hours passed in anxious waiting, every tick of the clock a reminder of the uncertainty resting heavily on Emily's shoulders. Breathing in deeply, she tried to center herself amidst the chaos swirling in her mind. The doctor had assured her that the procedure would be straightforward, yet she felt an unshakable grip of fear. But as she sat there, with each moment that passed, she began to recognize the immense progress she had made in this journey for both herself and Max. This wasn't just about Max being wheeled away into surgery. It was about her reclaiming her voice, confronting her fears, and engaging deeply with the process of healing. Each piece of information gathered, every inquiry made, was a testament to her renewed determination to be an active participant rather than a passive observer. When the doctor finally entered the waiting area, a sense of clarity filled the space. His expression was calm yet serious. "Max did really well. We were able to clear the blockage without complications." A wave of relief washed over Emily, leaving her almost lightheaded. "He'll need some time to wake up, but you can see him soon." Rising to her feet, she felt a rush of gratitude welling up from within. In that moment, she realized that her proactive approach had strengthened not just her ability to advocate for Max, but had fundamentally shifted her perspective on her own fears. She was capable, competent, and resourceful. As she headed towards Max's recovery room, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey she'd undertaken, both personally and professionally. As she stepped into the room, Max lay peacefully asleep, the monitors beeping softly beside him, each sound marking a victorious heartbeat. She grasped his tiny hand gently, a tangible connection that anchored her. In that stillness, she felt a sense of peace wash over her, The fear had dispersed, replaced by a profound understanding of strength and resilience. "I promised you we'd fight through this together," she whispered softly, her voice thick with emotion but steady. The journey they had taken together, alongside Mr. Thompson's influence and her exploration of uncertainty, had all been steps toward this moment of clarity. Days later, after Max had fully recovered, Emily found herself in a vibrant new rhythm of life. The experience had taught her to embrace vulnerability, and she had begun to apply that understanding in her interactions outside the hospital. No longer sitting quietly in the corner or hiding her truths behind a curtain of self-doubt, she communicated boldly, pushed for her ideas, and engaged deeply with her colleagues. Mr. Thompson had reached out after Max's surgery with renewed motivation to address his lingering past. Their supportive conversations began to evolve from shared trauma to paths of healing. Emily had chosen to create an open dialogue about her own challenges as they discussed their journeys, further reinforcing the bond they had formed. "I've learned that it's okay to allow others to share in your burdens," Emily confided during one of their exchanges. "Embracing the uncomfortable has opened new doors, and I want to extend that hope to you." His gratitude was palpable, echoing the sentiment that their connection had become mutually beneficial, an exchange of strength where both parties emerged stronger. Through mutual support and shared vulnerability, they found an allyship that transcended the confines of their individual struggles. It was precisely this transformation that spurred Emily into action, initiating a series of workshops at the clinic, encouraging emotional resilience among staff. She wanted to create an environment where dialogues could flourish, fears could be confronted, and ultimately transformed into growth. Her decision to step into a leadership role resonated deeply within her. The fear that once paralyzed her was now the driving force behind her professional evolution. In connecting with others, offering guidance, and sharing her journey, she had cemented her position as a respected advocate and a role model within her community. In the months that followed, Emily experienced a profound sense of fulfillment, the type of accomplishment that came not from accolades, but from witnessing the ripple effect her actions had on those around her. She stood firm in her identity as a competent, courageous woman, revolutionizing the narrative for herself and others. She gazed out into the clinic's busy waiting room one afternoon, overwhelmed with gratitude for the journey she had undertaken. From trepidation to triumph, Emily had proven to herself that the power to facilitate change was within her grasp. Her mantra became clear. True growth ignites when one dares to confront fear, step boldly into vulnerability, and extend that courage into the lives of others. With unwavering determination, Emily pressed forward into a future she now shaped and defined, one where she was not only a strong veterinarian, but also a harbinger of resilience and transformation, not just for herself, but for her community as well. This was not merely the end of a chapter. It marked the beginning of a legacy she was ready to uphold, fierce and proud. Now is the moment for you to embrace this journey with Emily. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you do not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this transformative ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. You need to support stories of personal overcoming. Don't wait even one more second to share.